www.ktav.tv if you're live around the country. You could also tune in here in San Diego at 89.1 FM. And you could tune in on YouTube at youtube.com/be blessed. That's B, the letter B, blessed, the word. We are live here to give you the kind of empowerment and motivation that you need on this Friday. It's Hot Button Friday. I want you calling in 619-431-3186 the first 15 minutes. And then at 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll have a special guest with me to discuss her claims of racial or of sexual harassment per se, as we will discuss what is happening with her case and issues. Tasha Williamson is a well-known San Diego activist who has stood up for the least of our community, and we're going to hear her story today about what she's fighting and why she's fighting, and learn more about what exactly you can do to support her. And as we begin the show today, I want to begin with this thought. The President of the United States last night made an egregious statement that we, our ancestors, and those who are immigrants who come from Haiti and Africa are shithole countries. I quote, shithole countries, that the president said. I want you to know that when you know who you are, you don't even need to give in to that. If we came from shithole countries, then we wouldn't be kings and queens. If we were come from shithole countries, then those immigrants that he's talking about wouldn't be the best workers in this country. So apparently, he's miseducated about the reality of America, that America was built on the backs of those of us who came here from those shithole countries. So when you know who you are, you don't need to get super hyped up. But I do think that in my thought today, Dr. King said those of us who stand silent are those of us who give in to and accept that kind of bigotry and hate. Today I challenge you to stand up. You may not be angry, you don't have to respond angrily, but you should at least stand up for the values and the tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King. Today, just moments ago, the President of the United States signed the Martin Luther King Proclamation, Martin Luther King Day Proclamation for January 15th. That same president last night said that immigrants who come from Africa and Haiti are coming from shithole countries. But he didn't even apologize, but he's rather using King as a platform. Let me tell you, those of you who believe in Dr. King and come from the tradition, the organization I'm a part of was founded by the very chairman, the very chief of staff, Wyatt T. Walker and Reverend William Jones, founded this organization with Reverend Al Sharpton. You can talk all you want, but we're the holders of the King tradition. And we are going to defend Dr. King's tradition against those who will use him as a platform to amplify their message. I think it's egregious, and I think that the President of the United States should opt out of King Weekend. Don't even celebrate our Dr. King. This is our Dr. King. This is the man who stood for us. He's the man who stood for those immigrants you're talking about. He's the man who spoke against that kind of racial bigotry and hate that you sparred across the podium last night. I'll begin my call-ins at this time from around the country, and I am checking in on our first call-in from Darwin Fishman here in San Diego. We'll go to him, and we'll begin taking call-ins from elsewhere. Darwin, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. And I appreciate you starting us off. And unfortunately, yes, we are reacting to another Trump comment. I think the thing that I would just support you in what you just said, Reverend Shane, by also adding it's not just the insult about for our countries and where we come from, but it's also, to me, what's really dangerous is the lack of responsibility. These quote-unquote shithole countries are the way they are because of things of Western rape and pillaging for hundreds of years. and it's systematic and structural. And that's why so many people are leaving their countries to come to the U.S. because of what we've done in other European countries. And that, to me, is just such profound ignorance we have, how much we've underdeveloped and how much we've destroyed economies and countries and the fabric, the way they operate. And I'm glad that you're on it, and I'm glad there's just response and reaction, because we also have to take this as a moment to try to educate people and to really understand why it's so offensive and why it's so racist for them to make these comments.
Right. Darwin, you are going to be joining me shortly here at 11:30 a.m. Actually, I believe you're one of the folks joining me at the Federal Building. I'm going to respond to the president's statements at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I have a lot to say about this. At the start of King Weekend, this is the same man who signed the MLK proclamation just minutes ago. How do you feel, particularly as a black man in this country, to have statements made like that, and by the same president who signed the Martin Luther King proclamation? We're going to go to our next call, and stay right there, though. We're going to our next call in.
Call from.
We are taking a call in now, and who am I speaking with?
James C.B. Gray from New York City, National Action Network, Harlem chapter.
Good morning, James. James, the statements from the president is what we're covering this morning, a lot of last night. Tell me a little bit about, you're in the very hotbed of Haiti, Haitians migrating, particularly to New York City, and particularly you have dealt with a lot of the Haitian community with the organization and a lot of the work you do. Tell me a little bit about your perspective about the president's statements last night.
Oh man! Well, first of all, I'm glad that I'm on the show right now, because I was going to do a Facebook Live and kind of voice my opinion about what I thought. And for him to say what he said, first of all, was totally out of character, out of line, and disrespectful. But one of the biggest points that I wanted to make was, if it weren't for Haiti, 50% of America would be owned by the French right now.
Right.
And a lot of people who don't know their history, I'm an African American historian, and this is one of my big things. If it wasn't for Haiti, 50% of America would be belonging to French right now. And that's because of the Haitian Revolution devastated France so much. They lost so much money during that process that they had to sell their portion of America back to America. So, and it wasn't America. It was, they owned that land. What happened was that this was the Louisiana Purchase. Okay, a lot of people don't know that 50% of America was actually called Louisiana at that time, and it was owned by the French. Mm. So, in order for France to get back financially stabilized after the devastation of the Haitian Revolution, they had to then sell their portion of that land that they owned in America to America, which actually was divided at that time into the 13 colonies after it was sold to America. So that would have never happened if Haiti didn't beat France and get their and get their freedom at that time with the Haitian Revolution. And that's one of the big things. I go through that whole chapter in order to kind of educate people on what it meant for Haiti to get their freedom from France at that time. And ever since that time, France has hated Haiti so much and has created an environment for Haiti to be kicked down and be, really rectified. They never let them live that one up, because Haiti is one of the few places that can say that they had their freedom before the United States, before Emancipation Proclamation, and a lot of other countries. They were the first country to get their freedom before all, got their freedom.
Right.
Haiti did it first, and that is they kind of set the standard for people to be free and to overcome colonialism on so many levels. And this is one of the main reasons why they're so demonized. You know, they did a great thing, but they also cost a lot of people a lot of money.
Right.
The Haitian Revolution devastated France and made them sell what they had on this land to America, and that was the Louisiana Purchase. And you know, we probably would be speaking French right now if it wasn't for Haiti.
Mm.
And so we got to do our history.
That's
you know,
point.
And that's why I dedicate every day of my life to promoting 365 days of Black history. Right. And my Black history also deals with Caribbean history and African history as well. You know.
Yeah. James, quick question before you go. You're involved in a lot of the Democratic circles there in New York, and you know, have been a voice on the political front. What would you expect from particularly Democrats? I'm having an 11:30 a.m. news conference here in San Diego. My hope is that the Latinos and some of those who we went to stand with on their issues, that they would come and stand with Africans and Haitians and African Americans who, at the start of King Week, mind you, it's getting ready to begin today. It has began King Weekend. You would think that our Democratic partners and the Latinos and some of those who we stood with would come out and stand with us. What is your hope this weekend that people will not stand silent? Because if you're standing silent, then technically you believe what the president said. And I hope that people will say something about this.
You know what? This is a very symbolic week right now for Civil Rights Memorial, for Martin Luther King's legacy. You know, and at the same time, we got to understand what the Civil Rights Movement stood for, fought for, and gained back at that time benefited a lot of people in the Latino community and the Caribbean community as well.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, these are all factors that are true. And I think now, you know, I'm actually doing my speech on Saturday morning, tomorrow morning, opening up Saturday morning action rally about the meaning of Martin Luther King Day. And in that speech, I say that it's not just a Black holiday. This is a people's holiday.
Right.
And the people, the masses of all, denominations of a multicultural aspect is penetrated and collectively come together to create Dr. King's dream.
Right. Well,
so this is above nationality. This is above race. We all have to come together. I think this is a major lesson with Trump just being in office. This is a lesson to understand how important it is for us to come together as a people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. So, well, we're going into, and I appreciate you calling in, James, and we're taking more call-ins starting back at 9:20 a.m. After 9:25 a.m. I'm going into a special interview shortly. I want everybody to listen around the country, and particularly here in San Diego, to learn more about what Tasha Williamson has to say about we're going to ask her about last night's statements, as well as going into particularly the issue she come to talk about today. We want to learn more about what you can do to support her. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere, because remember, whatever you do, however you do it, you can't sit down. You've got to get up. We're going on a quick break. We'll be right back in just a moment. Stay right there.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry. You are listening to the San Diego Station of Inspiration, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
All right, hello, back. We are back here live on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. And those of you who are watching live and listening live around the country, thank you for tuning in. I am live now with a really well-known activist in our community here in San Diego who has stood up for the least of them, who has stood up for our communities and has attacked the gang issue head on without making those who are particularly quote unquote documented gang members look dehumanized. She has made the real strong stances in our community and humanized people that often are the ones that they're trying to make not human and perceive them as not human. She's been stood up. She stood up against the kind of policing that is documenting our young men in our communities, and she's just overall been a mother of our community who has not stood down but has stood up. Tasha Williamson, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you've been fighting particularly this big fight with the Urban League of San Diego. Now, I want people to understand this is not the National Urban League, but this is the Urban League of San Diego that you've been dealing with around some claims. And I want you to talk a little bit about that.
So, yes, I have, and it hasn't just been me alone. The retaliation that happened subsequently injured and caused damage to my entire team. We are a mobile response team, and we used Urban League as a fiscal agent. And then subsequently from that, sexual harassment happened from their president to me, directly to me. And when I asked him to stop, it escalated to being cussed out, him taking our money. And when I told my team, he told them in a private meeting that I was not welcome at, that I could no longer be a part of the meetings, which really prevented me from being able to do my job, since I was the one who wrote the grants, organized the stuff, and did the reporting. And then even further, because when I moved out here, I had 2 jobs in order to live with my family in San Diego. He went to my second job and intimidated that boss, and subsequently now I'm without a job. So,
and to bring context, they were a physical agent for what is the name of that?
Community Assistance Support Team.
And that group and organization does what?
So we are a mobile response team that responds to particularly gang violence. And we respond in support of not only the community but the law enforcement. So the Sheriff's Department, SDPD, El Cajon PD. And we go out and we help community members who have injured loved ones and the victims to be able to navigate services, victims assistance, county services, other nonprofit services, so that they can begin to heal. We also work with the Level 1 Trauma Center, UCSD, in making sure that we reduce the re-injury that happens, because that is a $246 billion industry that people who are injured get re-injured because they don't make it to appointments, or they don't have insurance, or they're not taking their medication. And so we meet people at their homes. We meet their children in schools. We have psychologists available. We have pastors, and then we have, of course, our team members who are the response team. And that's why this is so critical, because that on the ground work that you guys have done for years. Yes. I have participated in meetings. I have been on the ground with Bishop Bowser, who's one of your pastors, yes, on this. And for you all in that positive, strong work, groundwork, breaking work in our community, to be intimidated by a organization that is supposed to be pushing for civil rights and supposed to be, I'm not just talking about the San Diego-based organization, to be intimidated by the leader of that organization is egregious. Now, you all lost your place, your physical agent as the Urban League San Diego was. How did that impact you all's work? You guys obviously bounce back. You keep going. You keep doing what you have to do. But how did that impact your work? I remember Attorney Dan Gillian took on your case, and you took them, Mr. King, to court, the head of the Urban League San Diego. And what happened? Yeah, we didn't take him to court. I guess what I really want women to understand is that because he held our checks for a period of time, and I protested outside of Price Charities for everything that he had done, because that was like the last straw. I lived check to check, right, and so it was like I needed that check to pay bills, to take care of my children, and my staff members needed their checks. So he didn't just retaliate against me. He retaliated against a whole group of people because of what I did, and so for me, I wound up quitting. And so there's really, what I'm being told is that there's really no case because I didn't stay, because he didn't fire me. But I quit because there's a law that says if you quit your job, they have to provide your checks within so many days. Right. And I needed my check in order to pay rent and to pay bills for my children. So it was like I was forced to quit. So even though I was sexually harassed, he asked me to call him daddy. I told him to stop. He asked me to sit on his lap in his office. I told him no. Even though those things happened to me, it's like I wasn't damaged enough. So I just think people don't understand I was damaged. He went to my job, my second job. He got in the face of my boss, intimidated him to the point where he was scared that it would harm the business. And so I was left alone, per se. And so that job is gone. We had to deal with that as the job and myself, and we dealt with that, and then we've moved on. But Ray has never atoned. He has never restored anybody. Ron Roberts' office had to rescind their check because he withheld Greg Cox's check and almost wasn't going to give it to us. He was forced to pay us for equipment that Greg Cox had given him money for CAS. And so these are things. The county is well aware. The sheriff is aware. I'm just told that he got $1 million contract after he's had $900,000 contracts taken from him, from the county. So I want to hold everybody accountable because, like you said earlier, silence is approval. And when people know the damage that has happened to a group who stands up for any and everyone, and especially those people who are in poverty and don't have a voice. Those people that may be in jobs and are afraid to speak up, and we speak up for them. And to have this happen to us, and to have government agencies know and have a code of conduct that they are not upholding
Right.
is egregious to us. And it makes me look at even the races that are happening with the DA and the Sheriff's Department, because you fund people who, which is accepting to me of sexual harassment. And so when a time comes where I hear Oprah on the Golden Globe say their time is up, and I look out into the crowd she's talking to, and it's a group of white women, and I want to say, when is their time up for us black women who have perpetrators that are funded and rewarded and rewarded, and we sit. And if we sit in silence, we're good, but if we speak up, we're homeless, we're wrecked, we have no careers. When will their time be up?
And when will the black men in our community stand up for character and treating our women with respect and dignity? That has certainly got to be the conversation. What are your next steps around this? We're going to have you back on. We did not get comment from Mr. King and the San Diego-based Urban League, but we will be seeking comment once again, and we will have another show with both sides on the show to talk about this and come to some resolution. But what are your pursued next steps, and how can people in the community support you?
So my next steps are to really get the information out there, because I'm not just looking at Urban League. I think I'm constantly getting information out there. I would love help in holding a press conference. We just had 2 other women. I think with all the information that I've been getting out, we had 2 other women that came forward against the second chance case with Angelique. So I sent that information to Dan Gillian, because they too were sexually harassed by this gentleman, and it was before her. So the president of Second Chance knew who he had, and he kept him. And so she was damaged even further. So these 2 women are coming forward. I've given their information to Dan Gillian, and so waiting for that for him to go through whatever he needs to go through. But saying to women, we have to stand up as white women are standing up.
That's right.
And not just women, but men who are respecting us, men who are courageous enough to say, we don't do this and we don't tolerate this. And we have elders who work with Urban League, elders who pray with Urban League, elders who do things and knowing that this Urban League has damaged and devastated not just women, but whole organizations within the black community. And it's their time is up. We have to say no. And so I'm looking to have a press conference, a gathering of a place where women and men can come and we can express that this is no longer acceptable in San Diego County, and code of conducts have to mean something to this county and this city and these foundations that fund these types of people.
And I call on others to come out. We're going to talk about how I could support. Obviously, I want to be sure that I'm communicating with all sides, and then I have my perspective based upon my communication with all sides. But I think that you're raising a really strong point. You were raising this far before the Me Too movement arose with Roy Moore down in Alabama on a national scale. All of the women who have come out, you were way ahead of that. And I think now more than ever, you raise a good point, not just about you, but other women being emotionally abused, and in some cases physically abused by these men of power who really don't care that they've done it and don't even care to apologize for it. And I think that there needs to be strong men in our communities who have not been down that street, who need to speak up. And if you don't speak up, you will become a part of it because you're supporting it and covering it. So we definitely should talk about how I could support it. And I give you a lot of, salute for standing up against such a powerful man in our community and saying that this is not right. And we as black women are going to speak up as well. And we want our fair share as well. And that's important. And, it's egregious to me that this is a civil rights organization that we work with on a national level. On the local level, we haven't seen a lot of fair play across civil rights organizations, from the NAACP to the Urban League to National Action Network San Diego. These San Diego-based, connected to the national organizations, we haven't seen the kind of coalition and coordination that is important amongst the civil rights groups. But I think that part of that has to do with leadership. And you raise a good point about women being respected in these organizations. You guys have done tremendous work with CAST, and we're going to continue to highlight this. So thank you for coming on.
And can I just say one other thing in far as we have voting coming up.
Right.
And I want to be sure to let even our white allies know that when people fund organizations like this, that is damaging to all women, not just black women, and that we need to make our vote as women count.
That's right.
Against the sheriff, who is funded $1 million, against Summer Steffen, who is funding money, and against anybody else, Bonnie Dumanis, who is running. These people should not be elected because they have funded knowingly people who have sexually harassed, or they have allowed it within their own organization knowingly.
And how can people support CAST now? You guys have obviously continued your great work. How can people support CAST?
Definitely, Charity Apostolic is now the fiscal agent for CAST. And so if people want to fund that, that's something that they can do. And I would reach out to, Bishop Bowser to see if there's something we can put on the website. Bishop Bowser is the lead pastor of Charity Apostolic. And so we're and people can help because we're starting our 501c3. So if we can get help with that, because we want to no longer have to have fiscal agents because we've been doing this for, I believe it is 5 years now. And so we're prepared to become a 501c3, as well as we have, another group that is doing what is called Justice House, which is for homeless and those people who just are having difficulties within the system. And so creating a space, we're trying to provide property so that we can begin to house people and help them get wraparound services.
Oh, wow.
And so, people that want, those are two new nonprofits that will be coming out. And so just look for them.
All right. Well, Tasha Williamson, thank you so much. And for those of you who want to stay connected with this issue, give us a call at 619-431-3186. We're going to be talking more about this in the weeks to come. We'll have you come back on and get more deeper into this, because if it's not Me Too for black women, then it's not Me Too at all. We all need to stand up, and we challenge everyone to stand up. Stay right there. We're going on a break. When we get back, I have Amos Jones from Washington, D.C., our political analyst, and any other call-ins that we would have from Washington, D.C. Stay right there. We're taking more call-ins, and Amos Jones is on with me shortly. We're going on a break. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. This is Reverend Shane Harris. Every Friday, I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.KTAV.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues. Washington, D.C. Talk for all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we're doing. So it's strategy time every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris on KTAV.tv.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
All right. We are back here live on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. And joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Amos Jones, our weekly political analyst, and Marcus Bright from New York City. Thank you both for joining me in our Politics Roundtable.
Good morning, Reverend Harris. I am in Fresno today.
Oh, that's right.
In your neck of the woods, Fresno, California, celebrating Martin Luther King Day of Reconciliation. Good to be here.
Thank you both once again for joining me in this short notice. And I'll begin with you, Marcus. You have done a lot of work across the country with the organization Education for Better America. You've been to San Diego with that organization. You are a part of the National Action Network and a professor who has taught students for years now. And you have been on the front lines of watching diversity and dealing with the conversation around the great diversity of our country. But particularly as an educator, Dr. Bright, you have to have something to say about what the President of the United States, Donald Trump, made a statement last night noting that those immigrants that come from particularly Africa and Haiti are SHIT whole countries. What are your thoughts, Dr. Bright, about that statement, and particularly from an educator standpoint, historically? How is this statement out of context? Because you and I both know that both of those people helped build this country.
Right. I think that the statements were absolutely reprehensible. And it's particularly troubling and scary when those type of vicious stereotypes and demonizations are allowed to inform public policy. And, we're seeing policy made off of these vicious narratives. And, I immediately thought, when I saw the statements, I thought about my thoughts went to the students that worked with for years in Haitian descent in Miami's Little Haiti and in North Miami, and students now I work with in Flatbush, Brooklyn, Crown Heights, Brooklyn, who are, whose parents or they themselves come from the African country, come from Haiti, and for them to have to deal with that kind of characterization of the leader of the free world is just pitiful. And so I think that, Reverend Sharpton always said, those who define you can confine you. So I think it's even more important now to work on our own self-concept and make sure that the self-concept of these young people is not impacted by such ignorance, but that they have confidence and resources and to achieve, with anyone else. And so I think that those were my initial thoughts. It's not surprising coming from Trump, but it's troubling nonetheless. And I think that we just have to continue to contend against it at every level.
Yeah, and you mentioned ignorant. You talking ignorant indeed. Amos, you are live in Fresno today, but usually you're in D.C. If you were there today, it is I hear a war zone in Washington D.C. today, with all kinds of fiery comments. Amos, you come from the King tradition. Your uncle, right? Am I correct? Your uncle.
Yeah, that's correct. I always chuckle because I never bring up my late Uncle Bill, but other people always bring him up because he's such a great pastor and preacher, and also a co-organizer with Dr. King at the Progressive National Baptist Convention.
And for those who don't know, he's talking about Reverend Bill Jones, who was the pastor.
And of course,
go ahead.
who baptized Reverend Sharpton in 1994 when Reverend Sharpton's mother brought him under traditional civil rights leadership out of the Pentecostal tradition, which did not at that time emphasize justice the way the Progressive National Baptist Convention Baptists were doing. And so she brought him to Reverend Dr. Jones at Bethany, and they worked closely together through the years. Reverend Sharpton was so talented as a very young man and did things in ways that were so ingenious and so effective that he was a great co-laborer in the Vineyard of New York and now nationally and even globally. I will also say that my great-grandfather, however, William Augustus Jones Sr., was college roommates with Martin Luther King Sr. at Morehouse in the late 20s and was to have been his best man at his wedding to Martin Luther King Jr.'s mother, except that my grandfather had to return home to Louisville to preach his ordination sermon at the Green Street Baptist Church, where my great-grandfather was pastor. Now, that's the church that housed the first convention of colored Baptists in America in 1875. So there's a long tradition of justice, which brings me to Donald Trump here.
Now, before you get started, Amos, because I'm a little hot this morning. I watched the President of the United States get up with Dr. King's nephew this morning. Just moments ago, he signed the January 15th proclamation, and that he talked about justice and Dr. Martin Luther King. And, you know, Amos, when you come from the King tradition, sometimes you get a little tired of people using Dr. King as a pawn. And that's what I felt like this morning when I was watching Donald Trump get up there after making these statements last night with those senators in the room who, by the way, are saying that it's okay that he made that statement because it resonates with his base. He gets up the day after, doesn't even apologize, and holds a press conference this morning signing the Martin Luther King Day proclamation. I mean, Amos, it doesn't get any more egregious than this, and it doesn't get any more fake than this. What are your thoughts on this morning, him signing the Martin Luther King Day proclamation after last night's comments and not even apologizing for it? I made a statement last night, put a statement out immediately, and I'm getting press calls. I'm calling on him and those senators to not celebrate King Weekend at all. They should stay at home. Amos, what are your thoughts?
Well, remember, Coretta Scott King specifically lobbied President Reagan, the former governor of California, to sign into law the Martin Luther King holiday. And Ronald Reagan opposed that legislation, but he went ahead and grudgingly signed it into law. This is what we sign up for when we decide that we want to give an imprint, a broader imprint over our people like this. So what would have happened to Donald Trump on the Friday before King Day had not signed a proclamation? What then? I think that would be worse. Now, what wouldn't be less fake would be, he'd be certainly realistic if he had just decided to skip out on that. But, you know, this is the catch-22 that we're in when we're in a political situation instead of a religious situation. And the important thing in the face of this ugliness, which is exactly what it is, though it's very reflective of American policy, because we've been discriminating against Haitians from the very beginning. We would turn them back but allow Cubans in. And the fact of the matter is we have a long history of a white America policy, like white Australia, dating to the 60s. And when people get into the country, we also have a problem of discrimination that continues against black people who are from the continent of Africa, the diaspora. And then at the same time, some of them are co-opted to compete with and take the places of black American native-born people with regard to affirmative action. So it's a slightly layered issue here, but there's no doubt it's completely ugly and discriminatory to single out these black countries. It flies in the face of President Trump's own declaration that we should be taking only the best and most talented people. If you know anything about most of these Haitian immigrants, they tend to be extremely well-educated, very good students, and do very, very well here in the United States, and they did well before they came here. And that's because they have a deep sense of their heritage as the birthplace of Latin American freedom movements.
Right.
And so because of that deep cultural sensitivity they have, the Haitians are great people, and that's ironically why they've decided that it's going to be the poorest country in the hemisphere. They still pay reparations, I'm told, to the France to France and to Canada. So these are the real things that we need to be talking about as well. Yeah, I almost said Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump gives voice to this hostility and this ugliness, but it's deeply ingrained in policy already.
Yeah,
Not to mention the discrimination that we are living through all the time.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of outrage to go around on King Day.
Yeah, but I think that Dr. Bright, it's up to us who come from the King tradition to defend the King tradition. And Dr. Bright, let me ask you, because obviously I called on last night the President of the United States and those senators who were in that room who accepted this, that they should not only apologize, but that they should stay out of King Weekend. What are your thoughts about the President of the United States this morning signing a proclamation on Martin Luther King Day Monday without even apologizing for the statement they made last night? Do you think that it's all right for people who don't really believe in Dr. King's tradition to be a part of King Weekend? Shouldn't there be some kind of standard to say that if you do not represent Dr. King's values, you can celebrate all you want, but we won't highlight it? We're not a part of that. Shouldn't we rebuke that?
I think that we should, but I think that it's also an opportunity to. Well, number one, I think that Trump doing that this morning is a slap in the face to the King tradition. But I think that it's an opportunity now to hold up a mirror, or to compare what is actually the King tradition to the masquerade that Trump and his cronies are putting on. So I think that we just have to use it as an opportunity to compare and contrast what King's vision was and what it is that's being promulgated from the White House.
Right. Amos, let me ask you real quickly before we go on this quick break, and then we'll finish our politics panel by 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because here in San Diego at 11:30 a.m., I'm holding a press conference at the Federal Building where I will be making my statement about President Trump's statements last night, calling on him to opt out of King Weekend. Let me ask you this, Amos. What are your thoughts about particularly I don't know if you had a chance to see the statement that was made at the proclamation signing this morning. Did you get a chance to see it?
Not yet, but it does not surprise me. Again, you're not going to have the...
Well, the nephew...
You're not going to have the president to skip out on King Day. It's just never going to happen.
Well, yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I think...
Though I don't blame you, though I think you're doing the right thing by applying this pressure. Let me support you. I will support you in what you're doing. Don't get me wrong on that. Again, I'm being analytical here with regard to the way things are. And you're fortunately a pastor who can call people to a much higher standard from a Christian moralistic perspective, which is where I operate from in the final analysis. So I agree with what you're doing. And I'm reminding everybody that this is very consistent. What we've seen with this ugly, open, anti-black mentality and statement, it's very much consistent. Richard Nixon said that black people would never make it in this country. He told his secretary, it's on the tapes, it's sad we'd never make it in 1,000 years. We just didn't have what it took. And yet he turned around and supplied all this uplift to black businesses that created a lot of black empowerment and billionaires. So, I don't know when we're going to get to the point where black people as a group are not in effect despised, not just within the country, but within the world. But I do agree that we have to keep pressing toward the higher mark the way Dr. King did. That, after all, was his dream, and that's why we celebrate him. And thank goodness we have this holiday, because what this holiday is doing is highlighting the absurdity of this kind of white supremacy.
Right.
And it gives us this forum. So thank God for the Democrats and the Republicans and Coretta Scott King appealing to Pharaoh Ronald Reagan and getting this done 35 years ago. This is what it's all about. And hopefully one day we will dwell together in unity, Reverend Harris, as you keep doing what you're doing to push us in that direction. Amen.
Well, Dr. Bright is going to be a part of the festivities around King Day in New York City. I believe you'll be at the House of Justice, where our King Day Policy Forum will be happening. Here in San Diego, we're having our annual King Day March and Policy Forum that will be happening at noon on King Day as well. And then across the country, NAN is leading an extreme amount of efforts to highlight King Day and highlight policy. We're doing 3 states. Reverend Sharpton's doing 3 states from D.C. to New Jersey to New York. Dr. Bright, you're going to be at the King Day Policy Forum in New York, correct?
Yes, I'll be in New York.
And what are you hoping to come out of that policy forum with? Obviously, we have a lot of concerns as we go into the new year about health care. We have a lot of concerns about taxes, the tax cuts for the rich, just policy in general. Education is at stake with the Betsy DeVos leadership on our national playing field. What are you looking to deal with this year regarding policy and hoping to come out of the King Day Policy Forum there in New York with on King Day?
Well, I think that's, what it is that NAN is doing here on the East Coast is a good model in terms of federal, state, and local. So they start off the morning in Washington, D.C., dealing with the pushback on federal policy, coming up with strategies to mitigate the damage that a Trump administration may do from a federal level. In New York City, it's going to be more local based, where you have pretty much every local politician in New York City, including the mayor, the governor will be there, the speaker of the city council, and so. But the focus in New York City will really be to hold elected officials accountable and make them articulate what their key agenda will be, what their agenda for our community will be.
Right.
And I think that's very key. With the inability to move legislation at the federal level, we certainly should be able to move it here. With a left-leaning city council and Bill De Blasio in the mayor's house and Cuomo in the governor's house, and then clearly. To salute the work of the NAN New Jersey chapter and Reverend Jefferson and Reverend Bartley in terms of them being able to mobilize in the state of New Jersey. They'll have the incumbent, or actually the governor-elect, Phil Murphy, will be there with them, as well as Cory Booker. So they really have the potential to really make some strides at the state level there in New Jersey. And so I think that it's really a well-rounded group. And we're looking for, we're really looking to engage our elected officials, our politicians, and hold them to the fire and find out what their king agenda is going to be, and have some dialogue about, what we would like to see in terms of affordable housing here in New York City, obviously economic development, jobs, funding for education, criminal justice reform, and the list goes up and on. So that's what we're looking for.
Right. Amos, you are also having very good, strong points, Dr. Bright. Amos, you're also here in Fresno in California. You're going to be speaking shortly this weekend, dealing with Dr. King weekend. What are you looking to highlight on this weekend as you get ready for your speaking engagements? And where are you speaking at?
The high point for me,
where are you speaking at?
I am not speaking on King Day proper. Yesterday in Fresno, there was the Martin Luther King Day of Reconciliation, where I spoke at the 6:30 a.m. community breakfast, where the mayor, pastors, police chief, former superintendent of schools, president of Fresno Pacific were there, packed house at the Westside Church of God. And then at noon at the First Presbyterian Church, I conducted a workshop for pastors. And then in the evening, I essentially preached, even though I'm an ordained deacon, not a preacher, but I essentially preached at a public community service, interfaith or interdenominational service, Christian worship. And my topics were in the morning at 6:30 a.m., Dr. King, the politician, which elevated the term of politics to the high form of justice and redemptive work where it belongs instead of a partisan situation. And then I depicted for the pastors Martin Luther King as pastor. And in the evening, it was Martin Luther King as prophet. And the idea was to find our own fire in these spheres that Dr. King so exemplified for us by working out some of the great details of the movement exposited by Taylor Branch, the great Pulitzer Prize-winning historian who wrote the definitive trilogy on the movement, starting with Parting in the Waters and then Pillar of Fire and then At Canaan's Edge. So it was enlightening to the people of Fresno, who've made a lot of progress with regard to justice, and they all seem to have appreciated them as much as appreciated me as much as I appreciated them. On Sunday, for me, the high point will be simply enjoying a service of worship with King weekend emphasis at the Shiloh Baptist Church of Washington, D.C., my home church, which is a justice church and a church in the King tradition with a wonderful senior pastor who's been on the front lines of these concerns for a very long time, Reverend Dr. Wallace Charles Smith, who's been with us for 27 years coming up this year. So that is my plan. And on Monday, I will tune into Reverend Sharpton, wherever he is, and others, and see what we're doing to move this thing forward after this terrible news of yesterday, but not surprising news.
Right. Well, we will be watching all of this, and I want to thank you both for this interesting political roundtable. It has been an interesting show. I have been preparing even more so now because of the statements last night. We are even more so shifting our message towards action, direct action on King Weekend and King Day all over the country. If you're listening, you should be mobilizing. You should not be sitting up hoping that somebody brings you hope. You should be standing up and figuring out what you can do and what you can say. If you're silent, you are being cowardly. You are being weak. And Dr. King talked about silence and really, really, really made it very clear that if you in the time, he said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. He made it very clear that if we do not stand up when it matters most, then we are a part of what we're fighting. We're a part of that very essence, that very conversation that is of bigotry and of hate. And we need to speak up this day, today, and prepare ourselves. Dr. King also said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Your life is ending when you become silent about what matters. What matters to you? Education for all young people? What matters to you? Is it people stop getting brutalized by police and for everyone to be treated fairly by our police? What matters to you? Is it to deal with fair voting rights for all and everyone having opportunity? If you do not speak up, you are a part of what you're fighting. And you cannot come out and say, I'm Dr. King, I stand for Dr. King, and not speak up against the hate and bigotry that the President of the United States spoke up last night. All of you out there can have King breakfasts all weekend. It won't matter the day or dime if you do not stand up and believe in the traditions and the values of Dr. King and speak up against that kind of hate and bigotry that comes across our president's desk. And not even just him. There are little Trumps who believe that in our communities. What are you going to do this weekend? What are you going to do next week? If you're in San Diego, there's a place for you. Call us, 619-431-3186. Get engaged right now. We have a King March happening Monday. Starting at 1:30 p.m., we convene at Park Boulevard and B Street, downtown San Diego. Council members are expected to join us, the city attorney, and others. I want you to come. Join me there, 619-431-3186, Park Boulevard and B Street, 1:30 p.m. We march down B Street at 2:30 p.m. At San Diego City Hall, there will be a policy forum. I want you to be there to talk about policy around education and policing and all of the issues, voting rights, homelessness. We need to figure out what is going to be done, and our policy makers are going to be there. We need to hear from them on what they plan to do in the resistance movement. If you don't stand up this weekend across the country on the values of Dr. King, you can have all the breakfasts you want. You can have the nicest events. But if it's not about the tradition, then you are just holding events. And you're just saying that you represent what you don't really feel inside. Thank you all for joining us across the country. I've got to go at 11:30 a.m. here in San Diego. We will be holding a news conference. I will respond to the president's statements last night, his egregious statements, and call for direct action Monday on King Day. But those of you who are listening, Amos Jones and Marcus Bright, thank you, Dr. Bright and Amos, for chiming in on our politics panel this morning, and this afternoon where you are, Dr. Bright. And remember that whatever you do, however you do it this weekend, if you sit down, you will accept the hate and bigotry. But if you stand up, you will be the one that you're calling, the change that you're challenging to see. You will become that. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Dr. Bright and Amos, and all of you around the country. Have a great King weekend. And stand up for what you believe in. Stand up for your values. Stand up for what Dr. King represented. And keep the dream alive. Don't let it die. Keep it alive in you. You can keep his dream alive. Thank you all for listening. Twitter me at Shane Harris.